Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Talk Food Safety with Jill and Tia.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're super excited about today. As we're right before Thanksgiving, too. So if you're joining us, we would love to hear where you're listening from. But also this is like the ultimate day. We've been talking about gratitude all month, right, Jill? And this is
Yes.
like the ultimate day to really recenter ourselves and think about out of all the things that are going on between work and personal lives, like what are we truly grateful for, and what do we really want to give thanks to. So we would love to hear in the comments, what are you grateful for? And it could be the ham and the turkey and the sweet potatoes that are coming
What's
up.
on your mind, Tia? I'm just curious.
You know what's on my mind, right?
Well, and I'm grateful because you're all going to hear shortly from Sara Krisher, our guest that's here with us today. But I'm so grateful to have Sara here and to be able to share her with you because she's amazing and you're going to find out pretty quick.
Yes, we're super excited about it. And we're excited about the topic, because even when you think about like building credibility in your confidence level, like when you are like on like your game, right? And you feel extremely confident, and like that's something to be grateful for, right? And those times that you're there, and let me know if you know that feeling, right? Like if you know that feeling when you felt like you were on the top of it, like that is like when you're smooth sailing. And so I know a lot of people are, trying to reset themselves for the new year and thinking about like, how do I get that confidence back, right? Like, how do I get the confidence to reset my team or to hit new goals for the new year? And so this topic is just like right on time. For a lot of people that's been out there, but even right on time as we think about like even within Catalyst, right? Like how do we step into ourselves and really think about like what we're going to do next year?
Mm-hmm. Very much. And so I'm curious, like I know you're Tia, you said you're grateful for all the ham and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Is that your answer that you're going with this morning?
I want to actually say that I am grateful for family. And you guys know that I have a 7-month-old. And actually, my husband and I, we were talking about like being grateful. He has this grateful app. He's so great about this. Like he has the app and he writes in every day, 3 things that he's grateful for. And he was sharing this morning, and Tiana, our 7-month-old, pops up a lot, right? And it's because she's changing so much, right? She has these like milestones that she's going through. Every week is different. And so I'm really grateful for her, but I'm also grateful that my family will be coming into town in less than a month. And so we're kind of gearing up for that. And so I'm definitely in the family mode of things.
Nice. Sara, do you want to join in too with
Yeah,
anything?
sure. I love both of yours, and I'm going to add something a little different just because health is like top of mind for me right now. So I'm just grateful for what I'm able to do day to day, and just just those things that we take for granted that we can do with ease. That's what I want to hold on to right now. So.
Yes, I love that.
I feel like you were peeking in my journal this morning. It's funny how that comes up. My dad actually hurt his leg, and it's so funny because he's like 75-ish, maybe. See, I should know specifically. 74. He'll be 75 next year. But it's so funny because even he takes for granted he is so mobile.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to hear him say, gosh, I hurt my leg and I can't do everything I want to do. And I'm like, I take for granted that my body still is moving. It's still working how I need and helping me move forward in this life.
Yes. I love that.
Thank you for bringing that up because I think that's something that we do take for granted.
Yeah.
Because we show up and here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello to Chelsea out there. Grateful for time off. Yes. Looking forward to some downtime.
And I know there's other people out there. So drop in the comment where you're from, what you're grateful for.
Yes.
And if it is your first time joining us, we are Jill and Tia, and we are really your go-to resource when it comes to technical leadership and food safety culture. And that's because we're the only group that has solutions for where you are today and where you want to go. And it's not training. Like, we're overtraining. We're over it. That's why we look at how do we better coach so that you can tap into who you are and unleash all those gifts that you have. Because as a leader, once you do that, now you are on fire to help your team move in that direction and everybody else that you encounter.
Absolutely. And Jill, I love it when you say we're overtraining. And it's because we
like, I'm like, we're over, not like we do too much, we do that too, but like we are over it.
Right. And it's because we try to, training has its place, right? And it's required in a lot of ways, but you should continue and must continue your training program. But what we try to do is put training in places that it really doesn't fit. You know, our team's not playing well together. Oh, let's give them training. You know, our food safety culture is broken. Let's give them training. And even though training has a place, it doesn't really fill the space of, okay, I have the training. Why is my team not executing? And that's really where coaching plays a part in, where it really helps you stay on the path towards execution, because it's really intrinsic. Coaching brings out the gifts that you have to be a better leader and to help people get to the place that you need them to get to. Training is just really the information, right, that you need, but people sort of use it as like this, oh man, we messed up, let's train them. Oh, we do that, let's train them. And that's really not what training should be used for.
Yeah.
So we're happy that you guys are here with us. If you're new, now you know a little bit more about us, but we would love to introduce you to Sara and our topic.
Yes, we are so delighted to have you here, Sara. And we're actually going to start off and ask you to actually even share a little bit about yourself and what you do so our audience can get to know you.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be here and have this conversation with you. It's one of my my biggest passion. So it is something I love talking about. And I think it became a passion of mine because when I was younger and I was growing up, I lived in a household where children were meant to be seen and not heard. And when we were heard, we got punished. So if we were out of line, if we were too loud, if we were too much, there were consequences. And early on, I learned that I needed to keep my mouth shut and I needed to just be the observer. And that kept me safe, and it kept me in a place where I felt comfortable, and that worked for a long period of time. But when I got into the working world and I had my first presentation, you guys, it was a disaster. It was, there were only 2 people at the other end of the conference table. So it wasn't like a huge presentation to 60 people. It was 2 people, and I could barely like say my name. It was that off-putting. And it was, I think, a combination of things, but for the most part, I hadn't been practicing sharing my thoughts or messaging. And it was the first time really that I came face to face with, I got to figure this out. And if I want to grow in my career, and if I want to, be a success, I need to be able to put my message out there. I need to be able to put words together confidently. And so from that place, for years and years, I've been in sales. I've been doing the work of presenting without formally looking for this to be my career. But in that process, I really fell in love with this idea of running my own business and having a speaking career. And as I pursued that, I realized I'm in love with everything it takes to become a better speaker. Everything that process was for me was so eye-opening and growth-oriented, and I'm still discovering. I'll never make it to the end. It's one of these things that I will always be interested in being good at and better at and develop. And I think that's what makes me poised well to do this work is that I can empathize with so many people that are fearful of speaking, or even maybe not fearful, but maybe you just feel like you aren't succinct when you talk and you don't know how to necessarily hone it in, or maybe you've gotten feedback before that you don't know how to do anything about. Likely I've been there because I did take some formal training, honestly, but I would say most of my learning has been School of Hard Knocks. It's been showing up to those engagements, those gigs, and learning the hard way.
Yeah.
And then going home and thinking about how can I do this differently and avoid it next time. And so I spend my time these days speaking, training, and coaching all around this topic of how do I put a presentation together? How do I put words together? And how do I do it with confidence? That's what I'm doing.
Gosh.
Wow. The fact that you leaned in after like having that moment, which I know you thinking back to that moment that you couldn't even say your name, right, without being flustered and feeling a certain way in front of two people. You told yourself, no, I'm going to master this. And now that's what you help people do. Like, that's an amazing story.
Well, thank you. And at the time I wasn't thinking, oh, years from now I'll be doing this and teaching this. It was really just like survival. I'm like, I need to figure this out. I need to get on with my life and not have this be such an uncomfortable thing. And funny about the training piece, guess what I did? I got back to my office. I looked up colleges nearby and I took a public speaking course. And honestly, I will add it to the things that made me less confident in my speaking. So doing speaking in a way that is not building your confidence is actually detrimental. So if you're preparing in a way that is eroding your confidence, or you're showing up and you're having bad experiences, you're not building your confidence, and therefore it is eroding. And so that class for me, we had to give multiple presentations and they were only like 5 minutes, but still for me, that was a lot. And each time I felt like I failed and I didn't have anywhere to put that processing. I didn't have, someone to talk to about it. And it became a challenging thing to, even at the end of that class, to go, I don't feel like I've gotten any better at this.
Wow. That's really insightful, Sara, when you talk about even the way that you're preparing for your audience. There's parts that contribute to helping you feel more confident and things that don't help you feel more confident.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking back to a few things I've done and I think, oh, I can see some interesting things there now.
Yeah. And I think even thinking about it from a food safety culture standpoint, when we think about the trainings that we do and even the interactions that we're doing, if that doesn't give our team members confidence to do their role and to help lead food safety culture or change their food safety culture, if those interactions aren't positive for them, it's actually having the reverse effect. It's not neutral, right? So like if you think about like, oh man, I need help with my leadership, right? And I continue to lead in a poor way, like that's actually causing a negative impact to your organization and to your team and to yourself when it comes to confidence as being a leader.
Right. Absolutely.
That's interesting because I think sometimes, right, when we have failure, we try harder, but often it's doing something very similar to what we've done because that's what we know.
Yeah.
And so, Sara, as you talk about that, I think in our food safety world, right, we always have an audience, whether it's our team, frontline team members, people that we're collaborating with, upper management when we're trying to get some additional support or communicate things. And I know you've spent a lot of time in this space. And I guess I'm curious if you'd share with us, like, what are the things that are most important? Because across all these audiences, we still like need to be effective. Like,
Yeah.
what's the first thing people can think about to help being more effective?
There are a few things that are coming to my mind. The first thing I want to share is really about mindset. So when you think about the word confidence, I'm gonna start here. When you think about the word confidence, there are things that we do that we're confident in. Think about reading, driving, eating foods. You look at a young child, your child, and you see that they're struggling to learn the basic things that we have down. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to talk about it. We do it. It's automatic. Those are things we are confident doing. Now, the being piece of confidence is often overlooked. And this is the piece that I think with speaking, it gets a little challenging because there is the doing piece. There is the showing up and knowing, what you're talking about and all this stuff. But then there's the being. How do we address how to be confident? And I put it like this. Confidence in your being, in speaking terms, is really about radical self-acceptance. And think about this in the sense of knowing that all those things that make you funny, all the things that you do that are like ridiculous on the day to day, like even when you trip over something and you like kind of laugh at yourself and you're like, oh my God, what are the chances I did that right then and there? Of course it happens. There's these pieces about us that make us real and authentic and the brilliance that we hold, the stuff that we've learned over the years, the communication we have with others, I'll call it the tacit knowledge that we embody. We have all of this every day, and this is what makes us genius. But when we go to speak, we say to ourselves, I can't show the flawed me. I can't show the part of me that makes mistakes, the part of me that falls down, the part of me that trips and looks ridiculous sometimes, and because we fracture ourselves and we say you can't come to the front of the stage, or you can't come to this meeting whole. We have to like somehow reject the pieces of us that don't work in this scenario. And what happens is we take on this persona of business and we say, I am a perfect business robot. I give good presentations. Yeah. And I'm making it very like, I'm making it hopefully vivid in your mind, because what's happened is you have said to yourself, to most of yourself, you're not good enough. You don't get to come up here with me. And therefore you sacrifice your quick thinking, your quick wit, you sacrifice any humor, your present mindedness in conversation that you normally flow with. You can't find that anymore because you have told yourself you're not worthy, and therefore you don't have access to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So with that in mind, I want to say the number one thing that can build confidence in presenting is really knowing that all of you deserves a space up there. All of you is what it takes to make this like authentic and real presentation.
Yeah. And I believe that, because if you think back to a great presentation that you gave, you really did show up as your full self. You were able to mold and be flexible or talk the way that you want to talk. And if you are witty, you showed the wit. You were able to bring your whole self. And, I was able to bring my whole self to that presentation, where it was like, yeah, I rocked that presentation, or I rocked that meeting, or I rocked that training, right? 100 people. I rocked that because I was really if you look at the base, right? You were your true self.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Tia, a lot of people do not have that experience of what it was like to rock it.
Hmm.
Instead, they have no basis for that understanding. So they don't know how liberating it can feel, how absolutely incredible it can feel to communicate with a group of people. Instead, it's fear-based. It's, I don't want to, I'm going to say no to any opportunity that comes up. And if I do say yes, it's because I'm being told to do it. And then that doesn't feel good either. But getting back to like, what are the things to sort of prepare in a way that makes you confident? I always think that a framework is really, really important when it comes to what do I talk about? And as simple as it can be, there are many frameworks out there. I've created my own. It's I call it the 7 C's framework. But it's how to create content quickly and in a storyboard format, or a way that your brain can see it and go, oh my gosh, I know exactly where this talk is going. I know what I'm supposed to say as far as what points I want to make. And I can see it all there on one page, and it makes sense to me. When you can prepare with that, you start to go, okay, I know what I'm thinking about when I'm preparing, versus the linear format of just like typing up your presentation and then trying to remember what you wrote and trying to memorize the order and the words. And it can be so overwhelming, and you still don't know where you're headed with it in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So that has been a huge piece of it. Yes.
Which is an amazing tool. So if you're out there, like, we're going to drop Sara's contact information in the link in LinkedIn in a little bit, but I was telling Sara earlier, because I not only have read her book, by the way, Confidence to Speak, on Amazon or on her website, standtall.com, right?
Yeah, standtall-llc.com.
Okay. But I've also taken Sara's workshop, and that template is something I have used over and over. And in fact, Tia, I'm chuckling because I use it quite a bit, but I haven't used it as much with you. I
remember you actually
I'm like,
showing it.
yes, we're going to pull that out and use it more. But it was really empowering, because instead of getting into all the details, like I tend to do, and I tend to do, especially being in food safety, because the details are so important, right? All the data, all the nuances, all the references. And I felt that I had to have all of that. But when I used your tool, it let me step back and go, what's the bigger picture and message that we're trying to do here? So that I could better guide how the presentation or event or interaction would go.
Love it.
Really powerful.
Jill, I remember you shared it with me so in October, we traveled quite a bit and we presented quite a bit. And I remember you sharing it with me. And one thing that I loved about it is because it does create this space for you to be yourself, but helps you stay on task, or I should say, stay on task with what you need to present. What are the top things you want to get out of, or you want people to get out of your presentation? And then you can fill in those spaces with who you are, your full self, right?
Yes, I think how great that would have been to have a tool. So as I had been, like, back when I was in manufacturing, like preparing for team meetings, preparing for the presentation with the executive team, preparing for like a company update, where instead of just putting together my PowerPoint and knowing what I wanted to say on every slide, like, step back, what's the big picture? Gosh, life would have been a little bit different, or I believe the outcomes would have been a little bit more effective.
Yeah, I think so too. And I always tell people, like, the reason I created it is because I was delivering 1-hour presentations and it was taking me like 20 hours to prepare. I mean, literally like hours and hours. Yeah, because I would write out the entire presentation because I didn't know, right? This is how I was taught. You write out your entire presentation so you know what you're going to say, but then you can't keep it all in your head. So now you got to go learn what you wrote. And that learning process is really detrimental to building any kind of confidence. But after a while, I was like, okay, I can't run a business where it takes me 20 hours to create a 1-hour presentation. How can I do this in a way where I know I've got all the parts and pieces I need, and yet I have the flexibility to be able to share how I need to share it with that audience.
Yes. Yes. I
And
love this. Like when I think back to presentations that I've given, or even Marcel, like even you brought up even in college, right? And thinking about the presentation you had to give in college, and even thinking about like interviewing, right? Like some of the roles that I interviewed with, I had to give presentations coming out of college. And I remember thinking back on like, okay, how am I going to give this presentation on a topic that I'm not really credible, I don't feel like I'm credible in, because I just, I haven't even finished my degree. I have a couple more months, right, before I even have the paper in my hand. And so I have to find that confidence from somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I got through those, and I think it's because I allowed space to be myself, and I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, look, if it doesn't work out, this wasn't the right role for me. So being able to have those spaces where I was myself, and I felt like a rock star afterwards, reinforced it.
Nice.
Versus like those thinking back to those times that I wasn't reinforced, right? And it kind of knocked me back a few. And so in food safety, I think Jill brought it up, is that we are constantly having conversations with people that don't understand food safety, or, it's not in their area of expertise. And you have to be the one to help influence your team, your business, your organization, right? And people that might be adjacent to food safety, or they're adjacent, but they don't even know it, right? We have to build that confidence within ourselves to be able to present the information in a way that is not going to diminish our own confidence, but that's also influential to the people that are listening to it. So I'm curious, like when you think about like building confidence and us standing in our confidence, what are some ways we could do that?
Well, I do have 20 confidence boosters that I created based on, again, personal experience, and really asking others too, like, what are you finding is helping you in that moment of like where you need to just pull it together and you need to move forward. So I'll share with you like my top 3. Really deep breaths. I know this sounds insanely simple and ridiculous, but taking a deep breath, maybe 3 to 5, what it does is it slows your stress response. So that fight or flight that's kicking in, that adrenaline that's taking over, when you breathe deep, you're telling your body, you're telling your brain, hey, I'm not in danger. I can take deep breaths. I am safe. I am okay. And it starts to reorient those chemicals in your body so that you can begin to move forward. Pair that with some stretching. You're gonna really help your fight or flight kind of diminish.
Yeah.
And then I think it's really, really important to have a mantra. And for me, my mantra is always, I got this, because it is a strong way to say, I'm showing up for this and I'm doing this. And I'm, I got this. It may not be flawless. It may not be perfect. I might screw up, but I got it. Like I'm going to get through this. And for me, that's way more powerful of a stance and a set of words that really helps me move into that space confidently, versus what we can do is tell ourselves, oh my God, I hope I don't forget this piece. Oh, what if I totally miss that, this or that, or what if I'm not reading the audience, and what if I forget my opening line? And like we can swim and swirl in our brains so much that we're not even present when we finally go out there.
Yeah.
The mind chatter can take over. And so
yes.
How do we create a pause so that we can actually get a word in to our own thoughts to go, nope, we've got this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love
And
that.
we fool ourselves into thinking that this presentation is about us. And when we go and we present something and we are thinking about what are they thinking about me? Am I like, do I have enough information? Do I have myself fully prepared? Do I this? Do I that? We can spend so much time thinking about ourselves and forget the reason we're there.
Yeah.
And the whole reason we're there is to make something magical happen because we're all together in a room. Like we are here together for this time and space, probably the only time we will ever have this opportunity to be here now with these people in this moment and to really think about how can I serve this audience? What do they need from me? Because it's really about what they need from me, not about what I can deliver, you know?
Right.
Oh, Sara, I hope let's lean into that a little bit more and unpack it, because
Yeah.
I think that's a space that I'm going to stereotype for us that we're probably not great at. I think as food safety quality professionals, we're looked to once again to we're always asked to bring data, show us evidence. And so we really, and I'll speak for myself, right? I don't have to stereotype, but what I used to tell, the story I used to tell myself was the amount of information I brought, and the quality of that data was a direct reflection on like how competent I was or how smart I was. And of course, that's not always the case because we only have what's available to us.
Yeah.
But then I would go into perhaps a meeting, and that's what I was leading with versus thinking of leading with the value I needed to bring to my audience. So can you share a little bit more, like how do we step into that space better, more effectively with our audience as our focus?
It starts with the goal.
Mhm.
And I'm a fan of simplifying. So if we think about the goal being, I can't look stupid.
Mm.
I work with enough people to know this is a major goal. Like I cannot embarrass myself.
And we know people who are in this space together.
Yeah, I cannot.
Right.
So if your main goal is to not look stupid, you are going to over prepare. You are going to have way too much information. You are going to overwhelm your audience. You're going to talk over their heads. You will probably alienate them, and you will sound smart because that was your goal.
Mm.
And I want to propose that is not the goal. The goal is to really connect with your audience. And in order to do that, you have to find language that resonates with them. You have to think about in advance, what is it they need from me? I always love to think about what are their top challenges. So as it relates to what we're talking about, you know, if you're going into a presentation and you are tasked with delivering some information, think about what are the top 3 challenges that this audience struggles with or is challenged by because of whatever the topic is, and begin there. Share, what is a challenge, and talk about how the information or the material that you've prepared really addresses a challenge. Because then it has something to stick to. Then it means something that is relevant to that audience. Versus, coming and just dumping information, but not having any place for it to really land within.
Yeah. Yes. I love the connection piece to the audience because that regrounds you to say, what does the audience need from me so that we can make that connection? And that has nothing to do with you, right?
Right.
The presenter to, where I don't want to look stupid. I want to, sound smart. I want to get this information out, right? I want people to understand this, but it's also, and some of those things are important, right? But you have to also include what do they need? Because that really is the connection point to the audience. And that's when people start to listen.
Yes, they get to hear and they get to be a part of something, and they could engage and it becomes like a conversation. Honestly, I think the best presentations are the ones that feel like conversations rather than somebody talking at the audience.
Right.
And
Yeah.
believe me, there's room for performers. There's room for people that do the speaking as a way of wowing the audience. And that's a particular space that they're in. But for the most part, us in our daily lives, in our work, we are not there to wow them. We are there to communicate something, to get a message across and connect with them so they can afterwards, they can feel comfortable coming up to you and saying, hey, Tia, I know you mentioned this piece, but I didn't understand it. Would you mind going through that with me again? And if you've connected with them, they will feel comfortable doing that. And wouldn't it be nice to know if part of your presentation wasn't understood? I mean, wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
I always think that. I'm like, man, I can get better if my audience tells me what they're not picking up on. I can become a better communicator.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
I think go ahead, Jill.
I'll say even that focus on connection is such I love that you bring that up as part of the critical goal of what we're doing when we are presenting and maybe leading meetings, because I think even when we're data driven, we all still make decisions based on emotions. And I know some people go, well, no, my KPI shows me this is clearly the direction to go, but that's actually still a decision. And it's based on this aligns with my beliefs or values or something else that tells me this is the correct decision to make. And I'm going to say that because I know we've also all probably experienced times where data or KPI or something said we should go this other direction, but we didn't, because there was something that wasn't aligned, because there's some other factor in the decision making, which is that connection and that emotional connection.
Yeah.
And so I love that part, because that's really what we need to help understand when we think about helping our teams move forward, helping with the improvements, helping build food safety culture. If we don't have the connection, then no amount of data, no amount of documented procedures are going to be persuasive enough to bring somebody along with us.
Yeah.
That's right. And when your goal is connection, your language will reflect that. So you will show up in a way that basically you're living out your intention, which is to connect. Now, if you were, and I always like to point out that our relationship with the audience really matters. Like if you are going into a high stakes presentation, like you're talking to the board or some investment group, or you in your mind have labeled this audience as high stakes. You put them above you, and now you're coming to this presentation going, I gotta do well, I gotta persuade, I gotta this and I gotta that. And in that process, if you tell yourself, these people are kind of ornery, and I know that I'm going to have a tough time with them, and I know that they're going to challenge me, and so I'm going to have to go in there and I'm going to have to tell them exactly what I think. And, like if there's any bit of attitude around what you're thinking of your audience, it will come out in your language automatically. You don't even have to try. So to really pay attention to, what do you believe about your audience? If you think your audience is dumb, like they're not going to get this is way over their heads, they're going to need way more than just this 1 hour. And, you will come out looking and sounding like you think they're idiots. I've sat in presentations before where I'm in the audience and I'm going, wow, this woman sounds like my mother. she's telling me what to do, where to go, and how to do it. And I'm like on the edge of my seat, just like cringing because I'm feeling it. And I don't know that she was even aware that that's how it was coming across. So if you're not on the same side of the table, let's say, like visually, I like to put everything in pictures, but if you're not on the same side, arm in arm with that audience, it will come across in your language and how you show up. So find a way to think of them as brilliant people who you are honored to present to speak in front of, to spend time with, and that will come across.
Yes. This connection is so important. Like when you think about leadership and leading either directly or indirectly, it's one of the reasons why we focus on coaching is because specifically in the technical space is because as technical experts, we're not used to doing that, right? Like we're used to connecting through data. And so we feel like if we show you the data, you're going to be like, yep, the data makes sense. Let's move forward. Right. Versus you have to be able to connect on an emotional standpoint. And, it's one of the reasons why we talked about early on with training. People try to put training in the middle of, no, you really need to learn how to connect with others, and I remember a very specific example of people not doing our safety checks correctly, our food safety checks correctly. And everyone was frustrated. I was frustrated. And one of the action steps coming after is like retrain. Well, I just did the training like literally 6 months ago. These people know what to do, right?
Right.
But there's something else that I need to connect with. And I remember going in there and I remember saying in the beginning that we're all frustrated about this. And I have to do the training because it's required. But I have saved some time at the end for us to have a conversation around it. And I remember I went through the training and people really didn't ask questions during the training at all. But once I opened it up for questions, then I got to the root cause on, things have been changing so quickly around them. And, we're running a bunch of SKUs and like all of these things that they were frustrated about that was causing them to slip up on their checks. And so we really talked about what do they need from me? How do I make it easier for them? And instead of being in like full presentation mode, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do the training, I'm going to, say my words and stuff. I really allowed for that space of connection by first acknowledging, right, that we're all frustrated about this and none of us wants to be in this room after shift. No one, right? No one wants to be here, including me. But let's use this time to connect and really understand what is needed, because it's not the training, right? The training is not needed, but I'm required to give it, right? What we really need is that connection and understanding what are the barriers. And if I hadn't taken that time to do it or even felt confident enough to try to connect with my audience, then that would have been a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that, Tia. And what I love so much about that is that idea of you weren't afraid to hear what they had to say. In fact, you invited it. And when I teach presentation skills, I'm always, even coaching on it, I'm always asking the presenter to think about how they can engage their audience at different points along the way, because the audience, if you think about yourself, all of us have been in the audience. You can get super bored. You can get irritated. You can get distracted. You can be sitting there and, in 5 minutes time, you could be checked out.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
I'm going to say even less.
If you got your phone around the presenter's pretty much screwed. So, So how can we combat that? Well, we can involve them. And we can involve them in many different ways. I mean, it could be as simple as raise your hand if. It could be as simple as somebody, turn to the person next to you and share a word with them. It is very simple to add pieces to your presentation that make it so much more rich and fulfilling for the audience. So it's my number one, like, when people are so nervous about presenting, when they start to realize they can involve the audience and take some of that pressure off of themselves and really allow the audience to answer some questions, allow them to do some work, it is good for them and it's good for the presenter, because now you get a little more material to work with. You get a little break. You get to learn who's in your audience and meet them. And so that's a really good technique.
Yes.
Well, and this visual too, I think, like you said, when somebody shows up for your presentation or somebody's showing up for your meeting, they've already taken the first step to say, I'm in. And so how do we as maybe who leading or presenting, how do we make sure that we engage them so that they can make the next, yes, I'm still in?
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea because that puts a whole different perspective on like how do we really engage people?
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things, Tia, that you and I really focus on when we do when we do our programs in our coaching is how do we really engage everybody to really show up and be an owner and how they're what they need to get out of it and what they're planning to get out of it and helping create an experience so they can get those things out of it.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. So if you, let's say, Jill and Tia, you create an hour's worth of material and you're like, we're going to engage this audience. We're going to get through these things. They're going to learn this stuff. And you get in about 15 minutes and you realize they don't have as much interest in one area as you thought they would. And they have much more interest in this other area, which you're fully prepared to go into. What do you do? Do you stick with the script and keep going as planned? Or do you deviate and do what is showing up in the moment and what is being asked of you?
Yeah, I think that it's funny. I'm trying to think of an example of this happening. I think that we will pivot.
We do.
Because we typically have, pieces, right? Like exactly what you're saying, where our audience could really be interested in any of them. And if it's something where it's like, okay, they maybe even have it down pat or people have already talked about examples of that. And it's like, okay, they have pretty much captured this piece. Let's spend a little bit more time on the middle piece or the end piece. And one great thing about having a partner is that we're able to move ourselves through. So like if it's almost like if one of us might be like, oh man, I haven't said this or I haven't, the other person can easily move us to the next point.
Nice.
Because they realize that, okay, the audience is ready to move. So I think we also do a really good job of playing off of each other with that, which is, it's a benefit of having two people presenting, right? When it's just you have to pick up on those cues and you have to be more open to pick up on those cues.
Yes.
Right? Where you are able to recognize those that you should move on to your next point, even if you feel like, oh, I haven't said these things yet.
I want to acknowledge both of you for being able to do that and flow with each other, because that's a relationship that you've got that is very special. Not everyone can grab a partner and do that. It is partner presentations can be highly, highly stressful. So the fact that you found somebody in each other that can do that is wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, we get a lot of practice each week on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Well, it's so funny because our time goes so quickly. And there's still actually, I know we want to talk a little bit about credibility, but I'm going to invite our audience. And I see Chelsea and Laurel and Jennifer, Marcel, April. Thank you for joining us. I know there's more people out there. What I'd love, or what I invite you to do, is drop in the comments one word of something that you're taking away from today, something that's standing out to you. Yes. And as you're doing that, we'll come back. But I also want to talk a little bit about credibility and confidence. We get a lot of questions, especially as people are moving into a new role and maybe taking on more responsibility, or someone who's stepping into a role where they feel like, gosh, everyone else has been here like 10, 20 years. How do I build credibility? And I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we were kind of preparing, but I want our audience to also be part of this conversation, because I think, like we talked about, these things are connected, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, credibility in general, if you're saying to yourself, I need to create credibility, I need to be credible, what you're saying is, my goal is to be smart. My goal is to know everything that I need to know. My goal is to come across as someone who's competent. And that's not a bad thing to want. Mm-hmm. However, if you're in communication with someone else, you need to drop that to the side, because now you are in communication with another. And what matters right now is your connection with that person or those people. Your credibility is something that you can struggle with and think about and want. But when you're in connection with someone else, that connection overrides any sort of credibility. All right. So to focus on that connection, the credibility comes in time without you having to work at it. And the more you focus on wanting to be credible, the more you feel the gap of unworthiness, the more you feel that space of I'm not there yet. And I always say with presentations, you're in control of creating this presentation. You get to create the boundaries, the framework, the guardrails for your talk, and you get to determine like what goes into it. So your credibility isn't on display. It's not, oh, how credible is Sara in the world of food safety? It's today in this moment in time, what has Sara brought for us? What are we going to learn, and how is this going to take shape? And if I've created this, I get to bring whatever credibility I need to that space, and to that little bit that I have prepared for today. Yes. You don't have to know everything in the world. You just have to have a really tight presentation.
Yeah, in that connection. And I think that goes to what April said. Don't be afraid to not know the answer. And that's okay. And that doesn't take away from your credibility because you have that connection. Because you're focusing on that connection. And if you have that connection, it's always okay to say, I don't have the answer to that. Let me go look for it. Let me think about it more. Whatever it happens to be, give me some time. Let me put some thoughts behind that, right?
Yeah.
Before I give you an answer. That is credibility.
Another one, Tia, I'm just getting super excited. Sorry to step on your words. I love the technique of, so if somebody in the audience asks a question and you're like, ooh, I don't know the answer to that, but you think somebody in this audience knows, to really take that question and go, oh, Tia, that is a really great question. I'm going to open that up to the audience. Yeah. Who in here knows, and then repeat the question. And I guarantee you, no one in that room is going to be like, oh, Sara didn't know, so she opened it up. Yes. They're going to appreciate that somebody else has been brought in, and you get to take a little breather. Yes. You're like, oh, thank goodness somebody else knows. And if no one knows, you can then say, well, all of us are stumped, it looks like. So let's come back to this,
Yes. Yes. I think that is great, because how many times are you sitting in the audience, you're like, oh man, I wish I was saying something around this. Or like you have a thought in your head that maybe the speaker didn't say, and you're like, oh, they could have added this. Okay. And you just kind of move on from it. If you open it up and engage your audience, right? Connect with your audience, then that person that's been like, oh man, I'm super passionate about this as well, I want to be a part of the conversation. They're now free to be a part of the conversation.
Yes. Love it. And we are all way more brilliant than any one of us. So yeah.
Even then we even realize ourselves.
Yeah. So to not take on that pressure of I've got to be the smartest one in the room and I have to know all these things, and no, you don't have to be. You have just packaged it today in a way that allows for all of us to learn and grow and take something away. So don't put that pressure on yourself to be the one that has to bring the enlightenment, that kind of.
Yeah. And it's unrealistic, right? Like that's an unrealistic expectation of yourself. And it's one of those things that can chip away at your confidence, because you've set this bar, this unattainable bar, right? And you're going to continue having negative experiences around it, which is going to erode that confidence.
Yes. Such a good point.
Very good point.
Yes.
Yes.
So I know we're running out a little bit of time, right? We're almost down to about 5 minutes before the hour. I would love it as we talk about confidence and credibility, how they're linked. I would love to hear maybe 1 or 2 ways that people can gain back their confidence if they've lost it.
Ooh. So if you've lost your confidence, to think about confidence as kind of like, visually, I think of it like a heartbeat. You know how the lines of a echocardiogram go up and down? Confidence is like that. At times you will feel really confident and like you're on top of it and you got this down, and at times you will not. And to really allow yourself to think of presenting and this space as an experiment. So allow for yourself an invitation to experiment with, well, I don't know what could show up. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm willing to show up because this is important to me. And I want to be a part of this conversation. I want to lead this conversation. And to really go at it from the heart and know that the stage teaches humility. And that's all you're learning as you screw up and fail, and you're doing things and you're like, shoot, I can't believe I said that or did that. And it's okay, because we are all imperfect and we are all doing the best we can. And your message and your purpose for doing the presentation or showing up is way more important than any one thing that you might say or do that you're kind of embarrassed about.
Yeah. I love that. And giving yourself space to be yourself.
Yeah.
That's the best space we can give.
That's right.
And it's liberating. It's so fun.
That's what we were here. That's what we are here to do. Can we fully step into who we are and not wear all the masks and expectations that everybody else and ourselves puts on ourselves? So powerful.
Yes. Agreed.
All right. Well, I know we're getting close to wrap up. So I'm going to just, if you haven't seen, check this book out. It's fantastic. I also dropped in the comments a link so that you can connect with Sara, and then her website's over there as well. So Sara, it has been like a pleasure, delightful to have you on and have this like refreshing new perspective on what confidence means, how we better connect and stay focused on the connection with our audience.
Yes.
So that we can, stay more grounded in who we actually are.
Love it. Well, thank you for having me. It's such a wonderful time that we've been able to share together today.
Yes. And, for people that know us at Catalyst, a boot camp is coming up. So we do have our technical leader boot camp starting on January 26th. And we talk about these things. How do you build those connections with your key relationships? How do you lean into this so you can be confident enough to change your culture and develop your food safety culture, right? And to be the leader, the full leader, right? You're meant to be in your organization. We talk about those topics. And so we would love for you to join us on January 26th. If you are curious and interested, please email us. We'll put up our email address so you will have it. We love to hear what you guys have going on as well. So send us an email, say hello. Let us know if you're interested to learn more about boot camp, because we're in the holidays, we're winding down, but we are ready to go.
Yeah. Shameless plug. Like, it is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
So whether it's for you or for your team, lean into the soft skills that help our technical skills be much more effective in where we're going.
Absolutely.
Yes. And next week we will be back. We have another fantastic guest on. Stacy Popham from Barry Callebaut will be joining us. And if you follow her at all, you will see that she brings joy and energy to her teams. And we can't wait to hear more about where that comes from and where she's going with it.
Yes, we're excited about having Stacy on the call.
Yes.
Well, we will see you all next week. Same time, Wednesdays at noon Eastern time and 11 Central time. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you again, Sara, and thank you to our guests.
Bye.
Bye-bye.